We're going to get started in just another minute, so hang tight for a little bit. Hopefully you're having a lovely Wednesday afternoon and you're having nice weather and not too hot. We have folks from all over basically the eastern side of the country today, now that ICS has offices in both Florida and Virginia and Western New York. So we've got a little bit of everything going on. So again, make sure you can hear me. I am chattering away. Check your sound if you can't hear me. All right. Oops, your sound, not you sound. Well, close enough, people. We don't hire me for my spelling abilities. All right, everybody. Just going to give everyone a few more moments to log on. Hopefully you've got sound. We're going to do management reporter tips and tricks today. It is a tricky piece of software for us to demonstrate because of the technical requirements. We actually can't install it on our computers. So we're going to use primarily PowerPoint. And if you have questions, feel free to put them there. But we will try to address them at the end if it is something that I can talk about. All right, beautiful. I am going to get started. Hopefully everyone can hear me. All right. So ICS is Innovative Cloud Solutions. We're two companies that were established in 1996. We have offices in Buffalo, Richmond, and Orlando. You may have known us as other names in the past, but we've joined together. We're a solutions-oriented partner, and we work on long-term relationships with our customer. We actually rep 3 different products. We rep Microsoft Dynamics GP, and I am on the GP team, but we also do 2 cloud softwares. We do the Microsoft Dynamics Business Central cloud software, part of the 365 line, and Acumatica ERP. If you're interested in cloud software. Who am I? I am Devin Southall. I have been a GP consultant. I live in Buffalo, New York, for over 18 years. I have a background in accounting and small business, and I currently specialize in distribution and manufacturing for GP. So I don't touch on the management reporter stuff as much. I mostly do it for the people who are doing like manufacturing accounting. So you may have talked to some of our other consultants with MR questions, but I am pretty versed in it. And today I am your webinar presenter. All righty. So what are we going to talk about? One of the first things I wanted to get in is user preferences. So before I get into that, let me just say that there is a lot of different blog posts with tips and tricks for Management Reporter. And what I tried to do is go through the things that I find that users have problems with or users are not aware of. And so that was really what I was focusing on, is things that, when I'm doing something troubleshooting, I'm like, you can do. And they're like, oh, I didn't know that. So that's sort of my focus, is things that I've found people aren't aware of. And then at the end, we're going to give you some more resources so you can see some of the other tips and tricks that I chose not to include, but other partners and consultants thought was important. All right. So anyways, let's get started going into the tips and tricks then. First off is user preferences. And there's 3 different user preferences I wanted to talk about. And so the user preferences, it's per user who logs on. It's how your reports generate, your file path when you're exporting to Excel, and your default company. So let me show you where those are. So first of all, where your reports generate. By default, when a new user is set up, it goes to the web browser. So it looks something like this. Most people are comfortable with that, but some people like to use it in the library, and the library looks more like this, okay? This setting to change it is in Management Reporter, the report designer program part, and you go to user options and you go to tools options, and right under there is a checkbox to change where it is as your default viewer. Okay. And so if you have it unchecked, it's going to come out as the web browser. If you have it checked, it's going to come out in the report library. Those are the two options. Also on that user preference is your file location for Excel. So that's down here. There's also one in the report library. It has its own tool options. And so if you don't like the default location it's going to and you want it to go to maybe a shared folder or somewhere else on your network, you will probably want to change it in both places. So both in the report designer and the report library, go to tools options. Okay. Um, from there, changing your company. So you want to set your default company. This is obviously for people who have multiple companies. So to set a default company, you go again in the report designer, you go to companies, and then you actually have to set it as the default. Why would you want to do this? Well, when you're building a report, it's very useful to look at that company's chart of accounts and details. You don't need to, it doesn't matter what you have set as default when you're running a report, but it is helpful when you're designing it. And so if you want to design for one of your other companies, set it as default, design your reports, and then switch back. I just had a little bonus tip. Did you know that you can put companies on trees with separate or combined reports, but also columns on a report? So if you have multiple companies and you want them side by side on a same report, let us know and we can help you with that. Okay. Um, moving from there, I am getting into some other tips and tricks. So the next one is the report name. I find it kind of confusing. People are like, they got this old name and they're left with it. So in Report Designer, you can right click on it and that's how you rename it. But that's the name in Report Designer. That is not the name that it will generate in the library. And that's the output name. So if you pull up a report in Designer and you go to this output tab, there is an output name right here. And so I see a lot of clients that have these different because they figured out how to change the name here in the report definition, but they didn't realize that the output into the library was getting a different name. So that's another tip that's important. And so bonus on this output and distribution, there's some Excel export options. Like, do you want formatting to go to Excel? Do you want calculations to go to Excel, or just the net numbers? So that's something useful to look at if you do a lot of Excel. All right, moving ahead. Next group, report design. And I said, yes, your reports can be pretty and informative. And I have 5 different things I want to talk about: the report headers, the column headers, the account column or the definitions, some formatting, and some 0 rows. All right, so let's dig into those. Report headers. So again, I'm in report definition here. I have a report pulled up. I've moved on to the header and footer tab. And so all of these at things are calculated fields. Those are available under this auto text button. And so pop into where you want it in your header or your footer. You know, this is the left, this is the right, this is the center, and check out what are the available options in insert auto text. I can speak. And notice here they say, however you capitalize is how you're going to get it. So this is the report name. This is your company description. This is for the 3 periods ending on August 31st, 2023. Unit name is off your tree, so Department South. Page blank of blank, so page 1 of 4. And then this is the short date and time that the report was generated, so the printing. Those are the ones I pulled out as useful fields, but come here and play with the insert auto text and read all the various options. Super helpful. Moving from there, column headers. So for our column headers, there is also auto text, and I actually opened up that auto text here. These are all the various options of what you can put on the columns. And so a lot of times I find super helpful to have the calc year or the month name long. So that would be August. The abbreviated would be AUG. Period would be 8, assuming you're a calendar. And so if you're doing a fiscal year, I like the start and end date. Those are super helpful. So play with those, and notice you can also type things. So the YTD, and you can combine them similar to how I did here, that I have words and then an at and then words. It'll just print those texts. So super helpful on your column headers, and notice the formatting on the column headers. So you're playing with your formatting here, up here, and that's what you're going to get. The data is going to be something I'm showing you next. All right, account row definition on the report. So sometimes it's super helpful, and maybe not all the time, but once in a while, to spit out how you defined that. And so this is literally the definition in the row format. And so if you have in the row format, give me my main segment 410 question mark, that's what it prints. But for certain reports, this is super helpful. And this is in my column layout, and I've done a count here. So it's ACCT, and that will give you this result. Moving on from there, formatting happens in the row definition. So in the row definition, this is where you can have text formatting. You bold, you want it italicized, you want it indented, you want it colored rows. You can do all of the word type formatting you have, and it even has defined formattings that you can set up or use. And so all of that formatting by default will be both across the way. So it will be for the description and all of your columns, unless you change it in the next section. So if I make this bold, the other columns will also be bold unless I change it. Okay. And let's talk about that. So number formatting is in the column definition. So down here in format override, this is where I can change the number. But there is formatting override here. And so you can change the formatting override if you wanted, you know, the description to be bold, but the numbers not. Most of the time we don't bother with that, but that is an option. Okay. And so if you want your numbers not to have zeros, for example, or to have currencies or not, or how you want your negatives to appear, that's here in your column definition. All right. And then last is the very important 0 rows. So on the report definition itself, you have 2 options that decide whether 0 rows print. Do you want to print blanks for 0 amounts? And do you want to display rows with no amounts? So both of those options can be turned on or off. Obviously, if you don't display rows, the blank's irrelevant. This will not be a 0, it'll just be a blank. Okay. In addition to what we have as the report as a whole, we down here have our 0 rows on the rows, sorry, brain freeze, on our row definition here. For a particular row, you can suppress that row of 0 or leave zeros blank. So there's 2 formats for a specific row versus formats for the report as a whole. So food for thought on those 0 rows. And so those are pretty common questions we have on the zeros. So some people like the blanks and not. All right, moving on from there, drill down. Drill down is super, not important, powerful feature in Management Reporter. If you've given users, say, access to the report library or web browser, you've given them access to the reports, whether they're designers or not. It's less questions from the users. So a lot of questions come up about drill down. So what reports, what data, and how do we prevent drill down where we don't want it? Okay, so let's talk about that. So what reports can you drill down on? So there are 3 levels of detail. Financial has no drill down at all. It's just going to give you the financial data. And again, this is in the report definition in Report Designer. If I select financial and account, so I'm selecting the account detail, I can run that for all reports. And it just won't print if they try to drill down on a calc row, it's going to give you nothing. But any of those data rows, it's going to give you data. Okay. If I select account financial and transaction, so I'm adding that transaction detail, I can only print that on reports with a periodic or a current month column. So I'm not going to get it on a balance sheet because normally we only have a year-to-date column on it. And I'm only going to get it on a P&L that has a current month column. I have some clients who have year-to-date P&Ls that don't have a current month. Okay. But that is how that works. So it needs that periodic column to work, just 1 month's worth of data. It doesn't necessarily have to be the current month. So you could have a couple periodic, like this month and last month. You'll actually get detail on both, which I'll show you in an. All right. What data? Okay, so first of all, where do you click? You always want to click on the dollar amount. If you're trying to click on the description or the account, that's not going to work. So click on the dollar amount. And if your report, oh, sorry, your report, see, I do that all the time. Your report as a tree, the first thing you're going to see is a node to select what node on that tree. Okay. After that, you're going to get your account detail for that row. So it's going to list each of the accounts. It's going to list the GP card description for that account and that report month period change dollars. So again, that current month transaction dollars. Okay. That's your account detail. If you're on a P&L that has a current month and you click on one of those rows again, the dollar amount, you're going to get the transaction detail. What are you going to see? You're going to see the reference from that journal entry and the transaction date and of course the amount. And if there's more than one period column, it's going to break it up by period. So it actually does that nice little grouping. I apologize. I don't have a screenshot because, confidential customer data, not good. All right. Preventing drill down by row. So sometimes there is a row that you don't want people to drill down on. The classic example for this is, of course, the salary column. If your reference is going to be detailed enough that, they're going to see individual salaries, you're not going to want people to drill into the detail. So on your row format, you can prevent drill downs on particular rows. There's 2 different options. So you can suppress the row in the account detail and you can suppress the row in the transaction detail. So if you don't want them to see the accounts or the transactions, and remember, you can combine these codes. So just select both of them. And again, this is in our row definition and in our print control column. All right, now feel free to ping questions as you go here. I should have said that earlier, but that's how I roll. But we'll also take some questions at the end if someone wants to type them. All right. Oh, let's talk about the library, shall we? The library is one of these features that what Microsoft intended you to do and what I see 95% of the customers doing is very different. Okay. So I'm actually going to turn on my camera. We can talk about this. Hold on, it's thinking. There we go. Hi, everybody. So let's talk about the library because it's important to think about. And this is one of the things that I definitely wanted to hit in this webinar because I've rarely run across a customer who's using the library as Microsoft intended. So every single time you generate a report, it is stored in the library. So today I generated the report 3 times because I had to keep making some entries. It's stored in the library 3 times. Where's that library stored? It's actually stored in your SQL database, okay? Taking up space. IT, kind of wants to know about that. Even if you're generating it to the web browser, it's still being stored in the library. If you go into the library and you're used to going into the library and double clicking to see the last version, you double click, you see the last version. But what a lot of customers don't know is if you right click on that report, you see all of the versions. And this is a screenshot that I grabbed from one of my customers. I blurred out their data. But I right clicked on one of their reports in the library, and these are all the stored versions that they have on this report, all stored in the database. So if you wanted to see, say, the version you ran in April 6th or April 8th, you could go click and open up that version. But you also can delete here or move them. So that brings to some other questions. Microsoft intended the library to actually store as sort of a data archive, potentially for your monthly reports. So you can add external files into the library, and you can also add folders and organize your reports around. So they were sort of intending this to be your archive of month-end reports for July 2023. And so food to think about, or food for thought, is maybe start playing around with using the library the way Microsoft intended, if that's something useful to you. And if you're not, maybe start thinking about deleting all these old reports that are being generated and stored. We've helped some other customers out. There's no easy way to delete them. I mean, we can wholesale delete every copy. We've also, you can go into the library and delete the reports, and then basically the next time you generate, they'll start from scratch. So the library is definitely something that I wanted to hit on and make sure that people were aware of how it works, because between how the reports generate, web browser versus report library, and the library itself, those, in my opinion, appear to be the number one misconceptions, or number two, in Management Reporter. Okay. All right. What else have I got? Add folders to organize. So you can add the folders not just in the library. You can add the folders in your report definitions, in your column layouts, in your trees. And so if you've got a lot of reports, this is super helpful to organize your reports around, maybe by company or by division. And so you can go into the report designer and right click in that blank space over here on the left navigation pane, add a new folder and move things around. And then you can drag things around and really organize both your reports, your report building blocks, and then if you're going to use the library, organize there. All right, couple more tips, and then we're going to open up for questions. Actually, nope, that was our last tip. All right, so I'm going to go back to me for a minute. We'll come back to this in a second. Do we have any questions? Feel free to type them in the questions or the chat. Quick bite. We don't want to waste your time. We wanted to get in, get out, get it done. So about 23 minutes. That was what I was expecting to run about. Any questions about Management Reporter that we can talk about for you today? No one's typing anything. Everyone know how to get to the questions. Elise, you want to tell them where the questions are located? Because I have a different presentation. You might too. Probably the bar up at the top. You can type questions.
I believe for the attendees, it's at the bottom.
There we go.
There's a messaging icon that you can click on to expand the chat and just enter your message there.
Beautiful. And someone just found it. Jennifer just said, I find when I try to delete old versions of a report, it takes a long time. I have also found that, Jennifer. one of my clients had us housekeep certain reports, and I honestly, and they wanted all the old versions. I actually deleted the whole report out of the library, knowing that the next time I generated that report, it was going to add it back to the library. So it wasn't going to hurt me, but that was easier than just picking out a single version. So food for thought on that. Also, I think there are some SQL scripts to do some purging. Um, all right. Anthony has, can data be pulled from Excel and SSRS into this application? Excel, yes. SSRS, no. So Management Reporter is a financial tool. And so it only sees out of GP, GL accounts, segment descriptions, and the segment descriptions and the transaction detail. Okay. You can, in a particular report, link to another Excel report, but it depends on what you're trying to do. So that would definitely be something to shoot a question into support, and one of our consultants can help you with. All right, Jennifer's got another question. When the data mart is rebuilt, it blows out the journal entry level detail. When the data mart is rebuilt, we are literally deleting that entire data mart and reconstructing it from your GL as it exists at that moment. So Jennifer, it is possible that you are not keeping transaction detail in your GL, which is an option. I never know why people have that turned on, but it is an option. So something to talk about with our support team, because most of our clients keep all their GL detail. And so if you rebuild the data mart, you just get better, more perfect data, not missing data. So food for thought. Definitely call us and talk to us. Do we have any more questions? Doesn't sound like. We do have a basic MR instruction guide that we have put together, a printable guide. There's also quite a few YouTube trainings online, and we also can give you personal MR training. Most of the time, clients just have us build reports and then just show them how to run it. But if you want the user guide and you're one of our clients, feel free to send an email into support and we will help you get that guide. What I wanted to show you is we now have separate newsletters. So our next core accounting newsletter is going to work on some of these MR tips and tricks that I did not include. I am sending you the link in the chat so that you can sign up for our core accounting newsletter. What we've done is we're going to break it into 3 newsletters. We have one newsletter that's focused on IT and critical alerts, one newsletter that's focused on core accounting, so AR, AP, GL, bank, and then one newsletter that's focused more on sales order processing, distribution, inventory, because we find that people have different concerns. And certainly in there, we will, I've got more tips and tricks that I didn't feel like covering, but thought someone might find these useful. So I saved a bunch of links. And so we're going to do a little more of that in these newsletters. Is here's some good stuff other people have put together rather than us generating everything. Let's use the resources out there. Elise, anything more to add on that? Doesn't seem like we have any more questions.
No, I think that really sums up the direction that we're heading with our new resources. And the only additional thing that I wanted to touch on is that we typically do send out this recording as well as a resource that you're able to just hold on to. So that typically takes about 24 hours to generate, so you can expect that in your inboxes after. And feel free, if you don't have any questions right now and you can't think of it, once you get the email with the recording, you can simply respond your questions there, and I'll make sure that they get to you, Devin, and we can kind of direct them that way.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, and always if you've got specific or individual questions, our support email isn't just monitored, it actually goes right into our case system. And so always support is the best resource for any of us, and it can be routed to the sales team or to a technical support resource. And so if you don't have that email address, at least will you grab it and pop it in the chat for me? That would
Yeah,
be grand.
absolutely.
Yeah. So always use support. It's fabulous. I'll let support know where the MR guide is if you want that, and they'll send it out. It just sort of steps through, like, for example, sorry, Elise sent me the thing. There we go.
It's
No, now I'm still doing it private to Elise. How do I not make it private? Sorry, technical difficulties. There we go.
well, just in case to reinforce, I'll make sure that this is also highlighted in the
Beautiful.
recap email. But best practice for us, we actually always have the support email address at the bottom of every single newsletter. So that's also just a good tidbit of information to have as well.
Yeah, so beautiful. All right, if no one has any other questions, next month's webinar is going to be account transactions in smart lists. So financial smart list account transactions, there's all sorts of cool hidden columns that people don't know about. And again, they're going to be quick. So 20 minutes and then questions. We're not going to keep you forever, just sort of a quick bite of something useful. So hope to see you there. Otherwise, bye everybody. Thanks for joining us. I just got to figure out how to turn it off.